patronage of St. George. So the title is the Patronage of St. George. The first part deals with the development of the cult of St. George from the beginning, immediately after the death of the saint, and it spread from east to west. The second part deals with the patronage of St. George in the Maltese Islands, as well as St. George in the artistic fields, namely fields of literature, music, painting, sculpture, etc. The third part is a chronology of the history of our town, which has always, since time immemorial, placed St. George as its patron saint. So we'll have a complete chronology of the development of Christian faith in Rabat, in Victoria. Naturally, Christian faith which has always been entwined with the devotion towards our patron saint, St. George. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the President of the Republic not only for his participation, but also for lending us a superb icon of St. George. Is conserved in the Russian chapel in the Presidential Palace at Atard, which is the focal point of our exhibition. We have reasons to suppose that the first icon in the medieval Church of St. George was an icon similar, at least in its basic traits, to the icon which is venerated in the Palace Chapel. His Excellency, the President of the Republic.
Su Presidente al Camera dei Deputati, Signora, Eccellente Reverendissima, Monsignor Arcipret dal Basilica da San Giorgio Megalomartri, signori, è un piacere aria in cui presento l'Inaugural dal Symposium. Il Symposium riando gli aspetti dal spirituale, dal storico, o anche movenze che sembra il Reverendissimo Ischoff dan le comprensioni igbar dal Knejes orientali, dal Knejes ortodossi in particolare. San Giorgio fa parte del folklore, non è folklore. San Giorgio parte di tradizioni, ma non è bis tradizioni. San Giorgio è associato a movimenti di liberazione, però non è bis liberazione dal dragoon o dagli aspetti dell'aia. San Giorgio è benedem, Hanna, riesce a svenire difficili dalle persecuzioni tal-Knisja e tiġi l-lum festeggiat il centenario tal-martirju ta' San Giorgio, vittima tal-persekuzzjoni tal-Imperatur Dioklezjan, li però dan il-martirju kellu wkoll bħala skop l-għalix tal-Kristjaneżmu. Ma kien sempliċement manifestazzjoni ta' krudeltà, imma kienet għalix il-Kristjan tal-ewwel snin, l-ewwel 300 sena ta' wara Kristu, għażlu il-mowt minflok il-konvivenza ma' situazzjoni ta' dik il-ħabta li tgħix bl-aħjar komodità li tista' fiċ-ċirkostanzi diffiċili. Kont qed naqra ftit illi fost l-aspetti interessanti ta' San Giorgio huma żewġ aspetti ħafna importanti. Il-sens ta' liberazzjoni tal-iskjavi u drittijiet tan-nisa. Meta wieħed jaħseb kif fl-epoka li fiha għex San Giorgio il-liberazzjoni tal-iskjavi kien il-messaġġ tal-Kristjaneżmu fejn għax aħna kulħadd aħwa fi Kristu. Ma jistax jeżisti l-konċett tal-iskjav u l-konċett tas-sid. U l-fatt illi San Giorgio jienu pjaċir kont qed insegwi nhar ħafna ta' ġejt tal-festa tal-ċerimonja tal-Quddisa tal-Għajt meta kont tisemmi festi li se jisiru, u għet jirriferixxa lejn bħala Ġorġi, kważi b'mod affezzjonat lejn San George stess. Il-sens tal-Kristjaneżmu din imħabba li kellu San George lejn il-Kristjaneżmu dak l-emmin tiegħu kien provokat mis-sens il kollha aħna aħwa f'Kristu. Il-konċett tal-iskjavitu li persista anki fi żmien ħafna lem fil-Kristjaneżmu. Anki San George ternu li għandu jipprotesta ruħu kontra tiegħu. U l-tradizzjoni qaddisa tajt li hu libera l-iskjavi kollha li kien hemm fil-dar tiegħu familja nobili ta' Kappadoċja, familja Aniċi li teorija kien jappartieni San George fit-tradizzjoni u fil-storja vera tal-eżistenza tiegħu. Tieni ħaġa wkoll interessanti li San George kien naħseb wieħed tal-ewwel li fisser id-dritt tal-ugwaljanza tan-nisa. Anki dan aspett ta' San George forsi mhux dejjem hu rikonoxxut biżżejjed. Imma għaw il-konċett tal-ruħ, tal-bniedem, illi dak iż-żminijiet, dan il-konċett kien għadu ma qabadx art. U San George forsi kien wieħed mill-protagonisti fl-istorja li ipprova jwassal dan il-messaġġ fl-epoka tal-persekuzzjoni Dioklezjana, preċiżament illi li tfisser xi tfisser tkun nisrani. Li tfisser illi int għandek tidentifika ruħek mal-kawza ta' min huwa qed jibati. I think that one of the very important features which we have to examine in this iconography of St. George is precisely this concept of Christianity. St. George is very much identified with chivalry. St. George is very much identified with what is best in knighthood. St. George is always identified with the warrior of Christ. But ultimately, it is not the glorification of war which we find in St. George. What we find in St. George is a martyrdom for faith. A martyrdom for what the Christian faith was conceived to be. A faith for the forgotten of humanity. Those who were slaves. Those who were not treated as persons with full rights. The defender of the weak. The defender of women. This, in actual fact, is the real icon behind the icon of what is St. George. I think this is the reality and the reasoning why this icon was built. It was not built just for icon building. There is much icon building taking place everywhere. The same thing, there is too much icon building. But in the case and the circumstances of St. George, the reality behind the icon is the reality of Christianity. We are living in times where, in spite of the great progress achieved, so many millions are still slaves to famine. So many millions die because of malnutrition. When I remember going in Ethiopia and visiting the refugee camps in Ethiopia, at the time I went there as President of the United Nations General Assembly, I found people dying of famine as if they were flies. And one does realize what Christians are we that can tolerate at the end of the 20th century, the beginning now of the 21st, that people die of famine, that people have no rights, that the whole people is considered to be a refugee in their own countries. I'm referring to the Palestinians anymore. And this is where the reality of the icon of St. George assumes a meaning. When we speak about St. George, we are sometimes love the concept of the folklore of the feast, the dragon and the lady was saved from the dragon and all this sort of thing. Well, this was a way, in a way, perhaps how to express in a folkloristic approach the real values behind the saint. But if we are to think nowadays, through these values, we discover the values of Christianity. We discover why these values are so present even today. When we think about the wars which are being waged, the sufferings of so many peoples, we realize what are the St. George's all about. The defense of the weak, the aid of the poor, looking after the forgotten, the great sense of forgiveness, how to stand for your principles against persecution. These are the real values of the saint. Sometimes when we hear the long panegyrics in churches, one gets a bit annoyed. One gets a bit annoyed because the style is one which has been coming down for centuries. And perhaps in the repetition of a name, one finds a propaganda approach to a saint, or to a creed, or to a belief. I think that the beauty of Christianity lies in its gospel. In its gospel which is built on such simplicity. On a gospel built on a great understanding of what this faith of ours. Today I think we were seeing when Christ appeared to Mary Magdalene. And there is a phrase which has been immortalized by so many painters. When Christ appeared very much like the gardener there, and when Mary Magdalene realized that it was Christ and she was about to touch him, there was "Noli me tangere," do not touch me. In my office at the palace, there is a very beautiful painting, precisely this incident of "Noli me tangere." And in one of the great museums of Florence, there's another one, Andrea de Castagno, which reflects this "Noli me tangere." Not because Christ is not touchable. Indeed, when later on he appeared to the never trusting Thomas, the doubting Thomas, he told him, "Touch me, put your hand where my wound was. Put your hand where in the wounds of my hands." But at one moment he wanted to bring out the spirituality of the resurrection itself.